The reason they like reading my stuff is that I've always got real life examples to prove what I'm saying.
There's a lot of good people that listen to this podcast.
Other than God and my family, deer hunting would be next in line on my list of priorities.
From the bottom of our hearts, it's just fantastic and awesome to have the support that you guys are getting.
People ask me about expandable broadheads and love swings.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, welcome everyone to the Chasing Giants podcast, episode 183 on August 20th release date. And we're sitting here, those watching on YouTube, looking at the young specimen 60-year-old Don Higgins, who celebrated his birthday this past week. How was it there, birthday boy?
Just another day. I was, what did I do? I went out and sat on a field edge, I know, that evening looking for bucks to video. Didn't see much. Went to Arthur, had a meeting at Arthur. And just another day in the life of an old man.
Well, you had celebrated already the weekend before with your family, so I know they got to see you for your birthday, so that was good. We had an interesting episode last week and talked about managing for bucks, and I think it's time that we start teeing up what we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks, and that's going through your buck forecast. So the inventory that you're taking right now, correct me if I'm wrong or not, but all of this glassing that you're doing and also trail cameras, as you start gradually pulling some of them, is starting to feed that data for the buck forecast that you usually do every year. I guess we'll probably do it around the beginning of September, right?
Yeah, I think that's typically what we do there when we're transitioning the cameras from the summer feeding areas or patterns with the bachelor groups to the fall rutting areas, which I typically do Labor Day weekend is when I get started on that. And, with the pictures I've got over the summer, the observations I've made sitting on field edges and driving back roads and such, I've got a pretty good handle on how the buck crop looks for that year by the 1st of September.
Okay. So we'll be teeing that up and plugging that as we finish out the end of August. We're going to actually leave more time in this episode. We're getting so many great questions. I think we have a lot of new podcast listeners, number one, because our numbers are extremely high right now each week. But we're getting such good questions. We want to knock some of these out because once we start hunting, we're probably going to be talking about what we see in the field a little bit more. So we don't want to kind of put these in a drawer for very long. So we're going to save some time tonight to go through hopefully 6 questions. Before we do, I published a video on Chasing Giants TV today talking about access. And one of the things, I don't know if you've noticed it, I'm not on social media a lot just to surf. Have you noticed how many people are putting and posting pictures of box blinds just out in the middle of an open field? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, that's been going on for a while, but yeah,
and
no doubt about it.
So it just so happened that this morning I mowed the paths in my corn, to make my tunnels getting into it. We planted miscanthus, but it's still first year miscanthus. I need a little bit more time, so trying to plant corn to get tunnels. And so I released a video this morning, which this is Saturday, on access that I think kind of lays out how I'm doing it on my farm. But the one thing I did tee up a little bit, and we talked about it a little bit before we recorded, is I was planning to plant fall food plots today. And I tell you what, I just did not get a warm fuzzy as I was looking at the weather the last couple days, and no chance of rain, I think, in the next 7 days. And we're going to have heat indexes up over 100, 105. So, tell me if I'm off my rocker or not, but I decided not to plant and break that ground open today. and let that seed bake until we get a little bit better chance of rain. Trying, like what Dwayne says, read the weather, not the calendar.
Yeah, I think that's a great move on your part, Terry. And that's where these no-till drills are so nice, is you can get your seed down in the soil without breaking open the ground and losing a lot of ground moisture. But yeah, the temperatures, I guess in the southern states, they've been real hot recently. I was talking to a consulting client a couple days ago from Georgia, and he said that they actually suspended all practices for football and I don't know, soccer, I believe it was. I think the state, if I understand it right, the state mandated it because they was having heat indexes in like 115, 118 degrees, and they wanted to make sure the kids were protected. And I think the state stepped in and mandated that there was no outdoor practices allowed until the weather broke. So
Well,
this
if the
hot
South
weather,
cancels football, it's serious.
it's got to be down there in SEC country. Georgia Bulldogs, them people are serious about their football. So, but we're going to get the hottest temperatures of the year right here at my place this week too. I think Thursday is supposed to be 100, and the day before 99. So we've got the hottest temperatures of the year coming this week as well. And I was going to plant fall plots. I'm going to keep a real close eye on the weather because my youngest daughter is, if she doesn't have a baby this week, she's going to be induced next Saturday. And so we're probably going to be in Indiana for, well, I'd guess at least 2 or 3 days. And my wife will probably be there for, who knows, 2 or 3 months maybe. But, if we get a rain coming next weekend, I'm probably not going to be able to take advantage unless I do it, a few days ahead of time. So
But
everybody's going to have to.
Like you said, though, you have the drill, so it's not as vital. I'm still working ground and then broadcasting it and cultipacking it in. And I guess, Don, my biggest fear, tell me if I'm wrong. I might be doing this tomorrow if I am. My biggest fear is that we're getting really heavy dews at night. I mean, it was still really wet this morning when I went to the farm, till 9:30. And my biggest fear is that we get just enough dew on that moisture on top of the ground that seed will swell and crack, and then that heat just beats on it for a week with no rain, and make those seeds die.
That absolutely can happen, and it all comes down to how much ground moisture you've got, and when you get the next rain, which nobody knows. So you could open up the ground, get that seed down so it's not on the surface where it gets some moisture. But then what if it doesn't rain for 2 weeks or more? Well, it could all dry out. So I think you're a lot better. And we still got time. I mean, we're not,
right.
We still got a full week plus of August, and the first week of September is not a bad time to plant. So I think the key right now, or the best approach, is just to be ready to roll. But when you see that rain in the forecast, try to get your plots in right ahead of that, and it should be good after that.
Yeah. And for me, I got plenty for them to eat. So the fall plots that I'm putting in are just going to be accents to what I have for diversity through the rest of the year. Speaking of the no-till drill, I just want to give everybody a heads up. We partner with wildlifefarming.com, and they made us aware of some really cool changes and upgrades to the Genesis drill for next year. So what Don actually asked is if they could come on the podcast and actually talk a little bit about this, because I think there's probably some listeners that are in the same boat as I am, where they're trying to evaluate whether they want one or not. And, we want to get this information to them now so that they can be thinking about it way before spring food plot season and decide if they want to get one on order or not. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Don, we're recording that segment here, I believe, next week, and it'll be on next week's show, I believe.
Right. I think it's Monday we're going to record that, but there's been some really good upgrades to the drill. They've actually renamed it the G Series drill, and comes in a slightly different color, still green, but it's going to be a different color of green. but some really good upgrades. And I'll just share one of them as kind of a teaser. Is now you're going to have dividers in there where you can easily plant in rows instead of having 7.5-inch drilled rows. You can space those out and do 15-inch or 22.5-inch or 30-inch really easy with this new drill. So that's just one of the upgrades. We'll let Paul tell us about the rest of them when he's on next episode.
Well, there is also another surprise that we've been working on with those guys about a sticker. We can go ahead and tell them about the sticker, or the chart that's been made, which I think is going to be a really handy tool, at least for our real world customers.
Right. So the guys at Wildlife Farming, Kerry in particular, he got a bag of every real world product, and he calibrated the drill to plant at the recommended rate. So there's two settings that you got to change on the drill for different seeds, and one of them is basically the opening for the seed size. So you plant something real small like clover or switchgrass, obviously you got to tighten that opening way down, and compared to like soybeans, where you need to open it up a good bit more. So there's a setting for that, and then there's a gear setting that determines how fast or the rate that seed is dropped. So, the drills are just absolutely amazing because you can calibrate them to plant just about any seed at just about any rate, and it'll do a good job, and it'll hold to that. But you got to fine tune it, to get the settings. And so using Kerry's figures that he gave me on the various settings on both of those, the seed opening and the gearbox, we've created a chart, and it's actually a sticker that our real world customers can get. They're not ready yet, so don't be calling the office asking for them. But in the future, these before next spring, put it that way, these stickers are going to be available. We're going to give them free with an order. You can just stick them on the inside of the lid of your box. So when you open up that lid to put your seed in, boom, right there is a sticker with all the settings for it. Doesn't matter if it's even like our soybeans. I had him calibrate 4 different settings. So there's a 50-pound setting, there's a 60-pound setting, a 75-pound per acre setting, and a 90-pound per acre setting. So whichever one you want, you've got your different options there. And there's a couple others that we did multiple rates, but most of them we just went with the recommended rate that you can find on the bag. But that's something that we've done for all the real world customers, because I get a lot of questions. I just got one today. I'm planting deadly dozen. What should I set my Genesis drill at? And we're going to have those stickers for guys to stick right on their drill, so they'll have it handy anytime they want to set that drill for whatever product.
I was thinking about this. We ought to, if we have room in the next year's land management guide, we ought to put that in there.
That's a great idea.
We need to. Hey, Ann, remind me when we're working on the land management guide this week that we need.
The artwork's already done.
That chart needs to be in there somewhere. So, all right. Yep. Well, we're gonna go ahead and transition to our Osseo spot. It's a new one this week, and don't just skip through this, people, because Joe Miles actually created a custom coupon for Chasing Giants listeners that's in the middle of this segment that you're going to hear in just a second. We appreciate Joe. He's got a bunch of new products available for pre-order on his website that you need to go check out. I'm especially excited about this new material on your back and the hand muff and smaller backpack and undergarment or base layers. So make sure you do that. And then we're going to leave time and jump into 6 full questions and some public appearances that we got happening in the near future. So stand by for a word with Osseo.
Osseo Gear has perfected one of the most innovative camo patterns on the market. The unique camo pattern designed to mimic the feather patterns of one of North America's greatest predators, the great horned owl. Combined with intuitive features, superior comfort, and ultra high quality fabrics give bow hunters the ultimate advantage. ICO has outfitted over 10,000 bow hunters across the country with over 1,000 5-star reviews. Visit asiogear.com to check it out for yourself. Use code CHASINGGIANTS for 15% off.
Okay, Don, well, before we get to the list of questions tonight, you have a speaking engagement and I have a speaking engagement here in just a couple weeks. So let's get these plugged real quick and remind people what to do to RSVP or find out more information.
Yeah, I was asked at church last week to speak at our men's retreat that's going to be held September 15th. And the public is invited to this. It's my home church putting it on. There's a ribeye supper. This is a Friday evening. So you get a ribeye supper and you get to listen to me go on a spiel about something. I promise you, I'm going to share things that I've never shared before. This is going to be one that you're going to want to hear. And I'm going to cover topics. I'm going to really humble myself and share some things about myself when I was a young pup. And it's going to be a good message. But it's going to be held right next to Lake Shelbyville in a campground area there, a private campground, but it's just right across the road from Lake Shelbyville. There's a lot of campgrounds real close to where this is going to be held. You're also welcome to bring a tent or a camper or whatever and camp right there with the group. Make a weekend out of it. Go fishing come early, go fishing on Lake Shelbyville, 11,000 acre lake with some fantastic fishing. There's a boat ramp within a mile of where this event's going to be held. And then that $30 meal ticket also includes breakfast the next morning. So if you're camping there, you can get up the next morning and breakfast is going to be provided. Just a really great time. If you're interested at all, call Curtis. His number is 217-254-1409, or you can call Mike, and Mike's number is 217-620-8806. And bring your lawn chairs. We have no idea how many people are going to show up at this. It may be 3, it may be 300, it may be 3,000. I'm going to guess it's closer to 3. Anyway, I've been praying about what to talk about, and the Lord's put some things on my heart, and I'm going to open up, and there's going to be things shared that I've never talked about before. So come on out, bring your buddies. If you got a church group, bring the whole group, get a van together, camp out for the weekend, go fishing. And then if you stay long enough, I'd want to invite you to church on Sunday morning. I'm going to stand outside the church. I get there early and greet anybody that's a guest that has come for this men's event, and hope to see a good crowd there.
Well, I think it was probably a fitting time for you to be a guest on our friend Brent Henderson's new podcast, Unleashed, earlier this week. I think it got released maybe the end of last week or beginning of this week, but I listened to it this week. And man, he has a lot of fire for the Lord and kind of motivates you to get out there and stand on your box and proclaim Jesus, doesn't he?
Oh, he's a fantastic guy. I'm telling you, his heart's in the right spot. It's just awesome that we're not only friends with him, we get to support his ministry. And yeah, he got me fired up. There's no doubt about it.
He told on this podcast, if you haven't heard of it, is called Unleashed, and Brent Henderson is the host. He had Don on earlier. I think the episode released either end of last week or beginning of this one, but he told the story to you, and I don't even know that you knew this, but he was really paranoid because when he goes to these big men's retreats and banquets, wild game suppers and stuff, he really wants to lay out brochures and of the people that support him. So Real World supports him as a sponsor, but we consider it more of a missionary. And, he wanted our brochures and our land management guide to lay out, and he was really worried about how he was going to set it out. And I just said, Brent, I don't care if you say anything about our company. We're supporting you because you're sharing the word. And I don't think he'd ever heard that in the outdoor industry before.
Well, there's nobody in the outdoor industry like you and I. There's no doubt about that. So we both cost ourselves more money than we'll ever make just by our bold stance. And if you think I've had a bold stance so far, come to that event on September 15th.
All right. Well, then the event that I'm going to be at is in northern Indiana, Napanee. I said this last week. This is the 5th annual Hunters Bash. I believe this is a Tuesday night, September 12th. You have to RSVP for this event by September 1st. Doors open at 3 o'clock. There's going to be a couple seminars. I'm going to be speaking on the topic of the journey of chasing giants, and you can decide for yourself what you think that is going to be about. Is that going to be about me deer hunting, or is that going to be about this podcast? And but teaser, it's about both. So we're going to have a great time. Gene Burkharder is going to be talking a little bit. Lots of prizes, great food, ice cream, the whole shebang. Admission is a donation, and everything's going to some local ministries and needs in that area that Lester's Feet's helping with. So the number to call for that to pre-register or RSVP is 574-209-2065, the 5th annual Hunters Bash in Napanee, Indiana. So hoping to see you guys there for that one. I don't know anything else. Do we got any more announcements, or can we jump into these questions? I want to get to these this week.
Yeah, we can get into those, but both those events, I'm telling you, I've been to both in the past, and they will both be great. I'm sure Terry will have a great message, and I don't know, I may not be allowed back in my own home church after my message, so it'll be interesting.
I know your home church, and I'm confident that you will. And I'm gonna make a bet, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there'll probably be a since it's there on Lake Sullivan, I would guess that if you look around the crowd close enough, our buddy Joey and our buddy Al will be sitting in a lawn chair somewhere because they love to come out and support you. So if you want to get to meet Joe Johnson or Al Foster, I bet they're going to be in the crowd that night. If not, they're listening right now. I just signed them up to be there to sign autographs in the back.
I had lunch with them yesterday. They're going to be there, no doubt about it.
So, walk up to Joe Johnson and ask him for his autograph. I'm sure that'll make him feel quite out of place. All right, here's our first question of the week.
Okay, this one comes from Stan Robertson from Rensselaer, Indiana. He says, "Good evening. Thank you for all you guys do. My question is something I have wondered for a while. I was listening to your recent live video on Whitetail Master Academy and was hoping you could shed some light on this. Illinois, Iowa, and Ohio are the big buck states everyone is wanting to hunt. Indiana sits right in the middle of those states. Why is this not a common state brought up in these conversations? I do not want more publicity to my home state, but I'm curious why Indiana is not talked about more with having a record book buck killed recently. I'm not saying our legislation and laws are not flawed at the state regulation level. Just curious what your thoughts were about this. Thank you for your time. Good luck this season." Well, Stan, you hit it. The regulations are terrible. You got 3 weekends of rifle season right in the rut. So it starts on a Saturday, goes through the entire week, the next weekend, the next week, the next weekend, 3 weekends of shooting deer with a gun. I don't care. You can be the absolute world's worst deer hunter. And if you can't kill a deer in 3 weeks with a rifle in the middle of the rut, then you might as well just take up golf or something, because there's just no excuse for not killing a deer like that. And that's exactly what happens is everybody that hunts gets a buck, and the age structure is not there as they are in the other states. And for the record, Illinois is falling apart. I don't think today there is as much difference between Illinois and Indiana as there was a decade ago. They're coming together. I think Indiana might be getting a little bit better, but Illinois is definitely getting a lot worse. And I had an interesting article submitted to me this week that's going to be published in the first issue of the new Whitetail Life magazine. It was written by, I'm going to save the details, make you read the article. It was written by a biologist, and he had data, not just an opinion. He had data showing what has happened to the Illinois deer herd since the legalization of crossbows. And he's even got charts within his article. I'll leave it at that. Regulations have a huge impact that they basically make or break a state's deer herd. And Indiana has had poor, the thing they got going for them is the 1 buck limit, but they totally negate that by having 3 weeks or 3 weekends, a little over 2 weeks of rifle season right in the middle of the rut. So it's all about regulations, and that's why Indiana is not mentioned. You mentioned that they did have a rec book buck. Yeah, they had a giant shot. There's going to be giants everywhere in the Midwest. Not everywhere, but they're always going to pop up because they're going to find those properties. They're going to fall through the cracks. They're going to survive to older age classes. Some bucks will. And some of the ones that do survive to older age classes are going to be giants. It could happen in Indiana. It could happen in any state in the Midwest. And it does happen. But the regulations keep it from happening way more frequently like it could.
You know, it's a double-edged sword that a lot of people get upset when we talk about. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. The easier they make game laws for hunters, the lower your age structure is. And you can't have a bunch of big bucks without age structure. I mean, those two go hand in hand, and the easier we make it and the longer or more opportunities we provide, it just brings the age structure down. So I bet Indiana would have just as good genetics as Illinois and Ohio. They have the soil, they have the crops, they have everything, but without the age structure, it's just not there. There's probably more young 3-year-olds with great racks killed there than anywhere else. You know, I don't see anything different, but you just can't get bucks to older age classes where they're going to be giants. And a lot of people don't like that mentality because they just want to go hunt. But they also, all of them want to shoot a big buck. They'll all brag about it when they shoot a big one. You know, they'll drive around town with their tailgate open for 3 days. But
I just mentioned that I had lunch with Al Foster and Joe Johnson yesterday. Al Foster had the greatest quote I've heard in a long time in regards to trophy hunting. And folks, don't get mad at me. I didn't say it. Al Foster said it. Al Foster said, there is probably, and I agreed with him, by the way, but he says there is probably more trophy bucks alive than there are really good trophy buck hunters alive. Think about that.
Words of wisdom from our friend Al Foster.
Sorry, Al, I just threw you under the bus.
It'll be all right. The improvements I've made to his turkey corner on my farm for next year, I'm sure he'll let that one slide because he thought it was a good spot last year. Just wait till he comes back next year. So.
Oh, they brought you up in turkey hunting, Terry. They're wanting you to get your buck killed this fall so they can come down and see them.
Oh, they want to come fall hunt?
Yeah.
I'll text them some pictures of what I saw on the farm earlier today and let them goo all over it. All right, here's our second question.
This one, I don't know who it comes from because nobody's on this one, but it says, Don and Terry, I always appreciate the insight and wisdom you share and provide all of us in putting the gospel first. My question may be best answered by Terry, but would like to hear Don's thoughts as well. We know often in Don's area and ag country, a lot of bucks often don't tend to stay in the same areas they summer in come fall in the rut. With that said, what are your experiences with bucks in non-ag areas like Kentucky or the Ozarks? Do you find they tend to stay closer to summer areas in the fall, or do you see them do similar things like in ag country and disperse? Thanks for all you do. Keep up the good work, and God bless. You want to answer that one, Terry? You want me to?
You can start. Nobody really cares what I got to say. Give your opinion, and I'll give
Oh, he
mine like
cares.
normal.
He flat out asked for Terry, and he said I could weigh in, but
I think that
you know,
I think that when we talk, the difference I see, like when I glass both areas. So I have hill country here in Kentucky, and then I go up and hunt Illinois. I think bucks still move. Whether you have a bachelor group on my place every year, there'll usually be one or two that stay there all year, but then there's bucks that just disappear, and then I'll have them come back late season sometimes. But the harder part for me in hill country is, number one, the tracts of land are a lot smaller. So a whole farm in my area is the size of one field, usually in Illinois. So when you locate, you have big open fields and smaller amounts of cover. So it's exactly opposite where I'm at. I have smaller fields with a lot of cover. So to really say that one is better or worse as far as dispersal or how far they go, my guess is that they would move further in big open ag field just because it's the distance to the next amount of cover. But, you can be in a different section of cover in 600 yards in my area, where you might have to go 3 miles for the next fence row in Illinois. So I still think bucks have different ranges. I think certain bucks might stay in their range. I have a 6 or 7 year old this year that he bachelors on me, and he's always there. But then I also have bucks that disappear. If I don't get it done in early September, I will not shoot those deer. So I still think the range applies, but my guess would be that the distance they have to travel in open ag is probably further. I don't know if that's true or not, though.
well, I've got zero experience. You've got way more experience in the two different types of terrain. I've got zero experience managing a property, hunting in the type of terrain. Well, I have hunted some in it, but as far as managing a property, keeping track of bucks, I've got next to no experience. But I do know this: research has shown that when yearling bucks disperse, they go further in open terrain, like the farm country where I'm at, the plain states, where there's wide open country. Those those yearling bucks in that area, or those types of areas, disperse a lot further than bucks in heavily wooded areas. Like some of the upper Midwest. You get up into northern Wisconsin, northern Michigan, where it's primarily all wooded. Down where you're at, the Appalachian Mountains or whatever, where there's cover for miles and miles, those bucks do not disperse nearly as far. So I'm going to guess that Terry is absolutely right, that when it comes to having separate fall and winter ranges, they probably don't move as far then either.
You want to try something different on the podcast this week?
Talk about putting a guy on the spot.
All right. So I might have to edit this, but the people who are listening on screen, I just shared a blank screen, and I'm going to draw a couple things, and Don is very shortly going to know what I'm talking about. And this is basically talking about a home range or where a deer travels. You know where I'm going with this already?
I think so. Yeah. So is the square a property?
The square is a property.
And the other shapes are the home ranges of different bucks.
Yep. Boy, that's a very crude illustration. I really need a whiteboard. Should we break whiteboards out for this podcast?
No, let's stay away from that whiteboard garbage. There ain't been a good idea come off a whiteboard ever.
All right. Well, so the people watching on YouTube are kind of getting what you're seeing, but explain a little bit. And this is kind of feed into you've made this illustration so many times verbally. We'll have 6,000 people watching on YouTube that can actually see what we're drawing, but the orange box in the center of the screen right now is a property that you hunt where you might see or get pictures of a buck. Explain what's going on here.
Well, the ranges of those bucks, Terry, are really it's the end of that range that's in that property, not the heart of that range. So there you go. Perfect. So what happens, I think, on a lot of properties like my own is that I've got all these different bucks here. And I mean, I'll have a bunch of them in the fall. And I think what it is these bucks, they will stretch out their home range to include a really good property. If you've got a property with a lot of food, a lot of does, and low human pressure, then these bucks I believe they will stretch their range in that direction just enough that they can encompass that property. And the reason I think that is I've seen many, 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 many bucks over the years that I'll get their picture on my property, but I'll also get their picture off of the property. But if I get their picture off of the property, it's always the same direction. In other words, if I get a buck's picture on my property and I also get his picture to the east of me, I don't get his picture to the west or the south or the north. It's like that my property is at the end of his range, and then bucks to the west, they come to the east far enough to hit my property, but they don't go past my property further east. And this illustration just shows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so there's a box in the middle of the screen, and basically just start looking at loops that are going in different directions. And the less pressure we put on this box in the center of it, and the more diversity of bedding and food that we have, the bucks will start stretching and making sure that they at least get there for some reason. It could be bedding, it could be the rut, it could be, does are bedded there. It could be because there's pressure somewhere else and they're going there because they know it's safe. There could be no food. And then you got this small circle in the center that barely goes off of the property that would be like the unicorn buck like Smokey, where their home range is just much smaller and they don't leave.
Right.
So the thing about it is, to get back to the question that the gentleman asked, is as these bucks go to and from in their range, whether it's the bachelor group to where they go for pre-rut, where they rut at the late season coming back, the distance there is going to be the objectives they're going to for those other reasons. I mean, look at Trump. Remind me, how far away? You got pictures of him like crazy far apart within just a few hours of each other.
Yeah, I think it was a little over 3 miles apart. These two pictures were, and they were taken like 18 hours apart. So in 18 hours, that buck had traveled at least 3 miles that I got on 2 different cameras. So every buck's is unique, but I have found that I believe a buck will stretch his range in a certain direction to hit a property that has seclusion, freedom of human intrusion, security, or food at a time of the year when food is scarce, or a lot of does like during the rut. And something else I'll throw out, Terry, we just threw out an idea that I promise you, there's a guy in Iowa is going to make a video about that this week, what we just shared, because he copies us day and night, everything we throw out there. We just gave him his next video idea.
Well, that's fine. Relating back to that graphic, it plays in, this is where all the puzzle pieces come in. So say you have a buck that you only get night pictures of, right? He could be bedded six properties over. If you don't get a picture of him till 3 a.m. eating in your soybeans or on your feeder or on your mineral, he could be completely at the edge of his range coming there in the middle of the night. Especially in big open ag country, he could be crossing a big old field to get to you. In Kentucky, he could be, in my area, he could be just one property over and 300 yards. So I think the more dense area you have, the less big ag, I think probably might reflect a smaller amount of travel, to get back to his original question. But, oh, well, if we've never done that on this podcast before, and I know the people watching YouTube, I guess if you like that kind of stuff, I guess we could come a little bit better prepared next time instead of me putting Don on the spot and you all watching me draw that. But, we could draw out some stuff like that if you look, or we could maybe have an aerial prepared in front of it. But third question of the night is from our buddy Jeff Gibson, good friend of ours. He's a big supporter of the podcast, and appreciate his support, not only the question but the support he always gives us.
Yeah, real world dealer too. Jeff says, thanks for the podcast every week. I always look forward to Mondays. I recently listened to a TV celebrity's YouTube video. He is very well known and kills giant deer in the big buck heaven of South Central Iowa. You always talk about human intrusion, and I agree. I have implemented this strategy on my Missouri farm, with my bottom being 40% of my farm. I do habitat work where I can, when I can, mainly in January or February. He has a somewhat different approach, conditioning the deer to his filling supplemental feeders and doing work every couple weeks. He wants the deer to use this every month of the year. He wants the deer used to this every month of the year. So November is no different than June. He kills giants, so what say you? I know what I think you're going to say, but I thought it was interesting. God bless you and Terry for all you do. Well, Jeff just referenced the same guy I think I referenced a little bit ago, but anyway, he makes a valid point. The other guy makes a valid point. However, the pressure he's putting on his property is not in the bedding cover. It's not in the sanctuary.
And it's thousands and thousands and thousands of acres.
Yeah, his properties are way, way bigger. But even at that, the pressure he's putting on is not in the heart of the bedding cover. It's out on the edges, in the fields and the food plots, and that. It's not in the bedding cover. And to be I don't think that we are all that much different, because I'm not out there every day doing crazy stuff just so they get used to me. But when I'm out working my plots and everything, I'm not sneaking around trying to do it. I'm on a tractor, an ATV, or whatever. I'm doing what needs to be done, but I am doing absolutely nothing in the sanctuary areas or bedding cover.
Somebody asked this question not too long ago, and I brought it up on Chasing Giants TV a little bit about some work this time of the year. And you're absolutely right. If I had my druthers, I'd do it all in February and stay out. But I also think you might not like this comment. I also think that in states where you have feeding and you can put mineral out, that you can get by with this a little bit more. Say I go to some of the properties that I hunt in Illinois that you go to with me. Somebody's walking those properties 6 times a year. That's the only time a human is on that property. And that kind of intrusion means a whole lot more than here in Kentucky, where I'm filling feeders every 3 weeks, if that makes sense. It's just, there's the constant. And then you have, when they know that you're there, you're leaving something positive in return, versus just tromping through. In Illinois, we can't leave anything positive in return other than a lot of smell and pressure. So, I was missing some screws from my 360 blind today, and this is how over the top I am. I was bush hogging a little bit, and went back and got my truck and drove the truck right in front of the 360 blind with the windows down and the radio on, the same way I do when I fill the feeder or check my trail cameras. And I left it running because I didn't want them hearing something that wasn't normal, which was that impact running. I had to run about 8 screws into the floor. And I thought that, well, they're used to the truck running and the radio blaring every time I go in. So I even did that when I went in and screwed some stuff into the floor of the blind today.
Well, for Jeff and all our listeners, you got to take a look at each person's situation, and you got to take advice from someone whose situation is the closest match to your situation. If you're in southeast Iowa and your farms are a minimum of 500 acres plus, then maybe this is the guy to listen to. But if your farms are 100, 150, 200 acres, and they're in an area where not everybody's managing for big deer, your neighbors aren't helping grow them whatsoever, that's a totally different ball game. So I don't think this guy is wrong in the advice that he's offering. I think he's actually spot on. I don't think that what he's doing is a whole lot different than what I'm doing. But when it comes to looking for advice or who you take advice from, you need to find someone who's as close to your situation as possible.
Yeah. And like I said, the bigger the property, the more you can get away with this. You know, I think a lot of our listeners are probably hunting 40 to 100 acre tracts. And I think you can still do that to some degree, but still the guy that he's talking about is not tromping his bedding area. Guaranteed. There's no way that he's tromping through his bedding area doing projects this time of year.
Yep.
Wildlife Farming is the leading e-commerce platform specializing in habitat management equipment. Our mission is to make available the equipment necessary for the development of wildlife habitat and improve conservation for hunting and recreational property. We carry flagship brands like the Genesis Drill and Goliath Roller, as well as the premier brands in planting, mowing, spraying, forestry management, and fencing equipment. Food plot and habitat goals vary. Wildlife Farming is the company that can deliver the equipment to achieve these goals. Equipment is our specialty. Our staff is trained and familiar with all the tractor and skid steer brands to make sure you get the right piece of equipment to get the job done right the first time. At Wildlife Farming, we only sell quality equipment, and we have the support and expertise you need. Please visit wildlifefarming.com for all of your equipment needs.
The next one comes from Mitch Myers from Argenta, Illinois. Argenta's not that far from me. He says, I listened to the podcast you did sometime in April, and the question sent in was, would you shoot a big deer without having it on camera? You stated that since you shot your 214-inch deer, that you always carry a camera due to all the accusations of wrongdoing you were subject to after that. I know you love chasing big bucks, and that has always been your life's passion. Several times over the years, I have heard people say something like, Don Higgins is going to go down one of these days. What type of tools do you use to be able to handle this type of hatred and still go forward in some sort of peace of mind? Do you ever wish you could just hunt on your own farm and live in peace and just get out of this whole thing? Well, Mitch,
every day. Every day.
Yeah. You hit on an interesting topic. You know, I have my good days and I have my bad days, and I think I'm getting to the point where I'm having more good days than bad, although it may not seem like it on this podcast, because this podcast is my opportunity to go on a rant. But yeah, so I shot my first 214 back in 2004, was accused of wrongdoing, absolutely bogus accusations. And from that day forward, I have carried a video camera on every single hunt that I've ever been on. Every hunt. Not one time have I left the video camera at home. And I want to be able to video document my kills, obviously, but I also video a lot of stuff that never gets seen just to protect my butt. So I can think of when I don't want to share too much because I'll just give the haters ammo. But if someone's going to come out after me with an accusation, they better have their ducks in a row, because I've been accused of not having permission on properties where I do have permission. And somebody will say, oh, I seen his truck parked over such and such a place, and I know he's got permission. One of the things I do today is, you know, once I get to know a landowner, and I've got their number in my phone. I text them every year for permission. Hey, so and so, this is Don Higgins again. I just want to make sure it's okay to hunt your farm again this fall. I don't want to take a chance on somebody saying, no, he had permission 5 years ago, but he sure don't have permission anymore, blah, blah, blah. And as new hunters and as family, family gets older and new people take over the property, or somebody in the family gets married and a deer hunter marries into the family, you get all this opportunity for accusations that no, he ain't got permission to be here. Well, that text is my proof that yeah, I've got permission to be there. That's just one of the things I do. I cover my butt with witnesses a lot of times when I recover deer. Um, I can, I've got a list of friends, some who don't even deer hunt, who have went with me to recover deer. It's not such a big deal on my own farm, but once I get off of my property, that's where I'm the most cautious. Now I'm cautious on my own property too. Um, I, I'm really concerned about people um, trying to set me up. To, for I don't want to throw out any ideas here, but I've thought of ways, that somebody could actually do something and then call the law and say, hey, Don's doing this when I wasn't doing it at all. They actually came onto my property and set me up. But it's a sad day when the thing that you love to do, you've got to be so conscious of every move you make. Um, and it doesn't really ruin the enjoyment, but boy, it sure takes some of the fun out of it. And your comment about, do you wish you could just walk away and I don't know how you put it, you know, disappear into the shadows, just hunt your own farm and leave it all behind. I'm going to do that one day. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't. It's not going to be anytime soon, but at some point in the next few years, I'm going to walk away from it all. And when I do, I'm going to delete social media. Social media is an absolute cancer on this society. It gives every idiot a voice, and they don't even care if they lie about you anymore. There's a guy in Southern Illinois likes to claim my entire farm's high fenced except for one opening where I sit, and he has posted this on social media numerous times. It's about to the point where the next time he does, I'm going to have to attorney send him a letter. That's how bad he is. And things like that I can prove. I mean, just show up. I'll take you for a walk on my farm. You'll see it's not all under high fence. But someday I'm just going to walk away from it all. I'm going to turn off social media, and I'm going to turn Chasing Giants over to Terry, and I'm just going to hunt in peace for the rest of my life on my own land only.
Well, there's always good with the bad, and Satan's always gonna spin it to try to discourage people who are trying to do. I'd like to think that we're doing good things for the kingdom and good things for the industry with all of our businesses and platforms. But being in the public eye comes with a cost, but it also comes with a reward. And yeah, I look at what you've worked your tail off for all of these years and been able to earn a living and grow a brand inside of the hunting community. Even as outspoken as you are and probably costing you more money than you've ever made, you've still been able to build a brand and earn a living in this. And that's a pretty cool reward that a lot of people, are envious of. So it's like anything else. Anybody in the public eye is going to have targets, but yeah, it gets a little old, and there's days that both of us just wish that we were back doing what we like doing and having an even smaller circle than what we have now. All right, next question. This is another local from Charleston.
Yep. Jake from Charleston, Illinois says, Don and Terry, I would love your input on how to focus energy and effort to get after mature bucks on public ground. I specifically ask this for guys like myself who have limited time due to work schedules, commutes, and various family responsibilities, and are forced to be weekend warriors. I'm not looking to be a lazy hunter and cut corners, but to be as efficient and effective as possible, specifically on public ground, which I find uniquely difficult. How would you guys focus your time and energy for scouting And what tactics would you use for hunting mature bucks with limited time and opportunities? Thank you for any input and all that you do for us hunters and hunters in training. Thank you most importantly for being fearless and unapologetic men of God. I have no doubt that through your platform, you're leading people to and back to God and are positively impacting more folks than you may ever know. Well, Jake, I appreciate the compliments. And as far as answering your question on if I was chasing big bucks on public ground, how would I be as efficient as possible? And I didn't have to think very long when I got your question in how I would answer that, because actually I did that for quite a while. I used to have a full-time factory job where I had to take vacation to hunt, and I would save my vacation for the rut every year. That's when my odds of success were the best. To increase my odds of success, I would do a lot of scouting on public land in January, February, and March. Have numerous stand locations at your disposal, actually as many as you can possibly find, good ones, all with the focus of hunting those locations during the rut. During the rut, the bucks are covering a lot of territory, and if you can just, Bobby Worthington talks about it, in the mountains of East Tennessee, which is not maybe, I guess some of it's probably public, but not all of it. But it's the same tactics, you just got to bide your time. Put yourself in a good pinch point and bide your time. Bobby actually wrote an article for the new first issue of Whitetail Life on this, hunting big woods bucks and how he goes about it. And I'll save the details that Bobby has in his article, but he's doing what I'm telling you to do here. Scout during the postseason, right after season closes. Find you as many good stand locations as possible to hunt various winds and things like that. Find them in pinch points, interior pinch points, within the timber, where maybe a ravine pushes the deer up towards the head of that ravine and funnels them, around something, or a bluff or something like that. And then have your stands ready and save your vacation time, your free time, your hunting time for the rut. And particularly that, I'm going to say that November 5th through the 12th would be my first choice. But if you had to pick one week, but if you've got multiple weeks, just start tacking them on to the end of that.
Yep. Don't ask me. Never hunted public. Don't plan to.
Probably a smart move.
I don't like people. So,
well,
looky what we got here. The infamous Aiden Miller. Uh-oh, I bet he's puckered up right now because he doesn't know what we're going to say about him.
Well, I bet he's got a little ear of corn in his hand as he listens to this podcast.
That's 7 feet in the air.
Yeah. Aiden Miller from Middlefield, Ohio. He says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Love the podcast. I know that the drones with thermal imaging are getting some traction in our area, and I am concerned that if nothing is done with this, it will be blown out of proportion. You can fly these things 1.5 miles in all directions and check the area in 10 minutes time, so you can cover a big area in short order versus a trail camera and glassing for bucks. I do not know the rules and regulations of these flying scouting cameras in my home state. My question is, would either one of you use a drone to scout for bachelor groups in the summer months? And if not, what would your reasoning be? P.S. Would like to see Don's reaction when he saw the drone hovering over his property. Thanks and God bless." Well, Aiden, I'll just come right out and say it. Anybody that flies a drone over my property, you're in danger of getting it shot down with a shotgun, a 12 gauge. And I'm not kidding. Keep your crap away from my property. I deal with enough idiots. I'm not dealing with drones. As far as your question, would I use a drone for scouting for deer? That's that technology is way beyond me. I can't even hardly operate my cell phone, let alone a drone. I'd have that thing crash the first time I tried it. So no, I wouldn't. I think the things ought to be outlawed for hunting. Really, um, I think they are for the most part. I mean, you're not allowed to, I think, spot game during season and go after them with a drone. And the other thing is, I think you've got to be licensed. I'm pretty sure you got to be licensed, just like a pilot, to fly a drone. And I think you might even have to do, you know, do a flight plan. I don't know for sure. This is to be a much better question for Steve Shields, but I know that you've got to be licensed. Steve has told me that. So I think the technology coming into the hunting industry is a lot of it's borderline unethical, and that could be said about cellular trail cameras in general, a lot of crossbows during archery season. There's a whole lot of things that could be considered unethical by some people. The thing of it that kind of irritates me is that the law, the game agencies that are responsible for the management of our big game herds, for the most part, they don't care about ethical issues. All they care about is numbers. They want to keep a deer herd or a big game herd at X number of animals, and when the herd has young at the beginning of the year, they want to harvest so many in the fall so they can get that herd back down to whatever their magic number is. And a lot of times they don't care how those kills are achieved. They don't care which animals in the herd are killed. There's no effort made to take out females, for example, although there are in some cases antlerless seasons most of the time. That's due to deer vehicle collisions and the insurance lobby. But they don't manage for sex ratios. They don't manage for age structure. It's just a number. And ethics doesn't come into play. I think it should, but I have no hope that it ever will. Anything the government's involved in is dirty, crooked, and overmanaged, overpriced. Just a joke.
I know the part that makes it pretty controversial right now is using thermal imaging on drones to recover deer after dark that are wounded or shot. And I think that people continue to use excuses to justify pushing the limit of technology. And I'm going to be shade on the more conservative side of these type of questions and say they need to be outlawed, period. Even if you're recovering a deer, I think you allow it, people are going to abuse it. It's not the good people that are trying to use it for it's not like Ray and Aiden have, a switchgrass field and they know that a bachelor group's laying out there and they want to fly a drone over there just to get footage of them to think it's cool. That's probably okay. They know it's there, but somebody's going to do it to figure out a way to trespass on somebody else's property and break the law and push the limits. The bad people, which are a very few number, ruin it for everybody. And I'm going to shade back to saying I don't think there's any reason to have it and should be banned and outlawed. It's just like in Alaska where you can't fly the same day you hunt.
Right.
You can't be in a plane and hunt the same day. So, and
Well,
Aiden, I'm going to call the restaurant there in Middlefield tomorrow and talk to the manager there because I heard that they took those little mini corn cobs off the salad bar. And, that's just
they said
unacceptable.
There was a couple of customers coming in, sticking them in their pockets is what I heard.
Yeah. So I'm going to call and tell them that they can't take those little mini corn cobs off the salad bar. They have to leave them for you. I got your back, buddy. I'm not going to let anybody mess with the Miller brothers.
I'm going to mess with them. No, he brings up a good point about what I would do if I had a drone flying over me. There is no reason for anyone to have a drone flying over my place, because no matter what they see, they're not coming on my place. Why do they need to fly over my place and look things over? They don't. Stay away. Anybody listening got any ideas? Don't even think about it.
I probably
A
have
country
better
boy
artillery.
can survive.
I bet I have better artillery for you. If that becomes a problem, I can hook you up. Let's just leave it at that. All right. Well, thanks to the Miller brothers for always entertaining us with their questions. It's always fun.
The ones we get by text are probably a little bit funnier.
All right. So you got a baby on the way. That'll be your third grandchild. I can't remember. Did they find out what it is, or is it a surprise?
It's a surprise. They found out, but they don't want anybody to know.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, if it's not born this week, next Saturday morning she goes in to be induced into labor. So I'd appreciate any prayers that anyone would offer.
Yep. So please lift their family up and the health of that baby in your prayers. Also, please keep in your prayers the young lady that Lester's feet helped that came out of that abusive situation that was pregnant. Again, since she's in the middle of kind of a domestic violence situation and stuff, I don't know a lot of details other than we helped her and told her if she needed more help to call us again. So, unfortunately, I'm probably not going to see the loop closed on information on that one, but thanks to all the people who have supported the foundation and all the other avenues that we're part of. That's the kind of it's our friend Rich Hickson sent me a message yesterday because he's in law enforcement. And he said that's kind of the taste that people in law enforcement have to live with every day, because they just see and witness, these kind of counts of abuse or, domestic violence and everything. And they just have to keep a cool head, but dealing with the emotional side of that is real. And, fortunately in my job, I don't have to deal with that every day, but I'm glad that there's a bunch of really good people in this world to take care of the absolute idiots in this world and be there and do the right thing. So even though I didn't respond to you, Rich, this week, I appreciate your comment and appreciate the support. It means a lot from everybody.
Yep. So I hope everybody comes out to Napanee on September 12th to hear Napanee, Indiana, to hear Terry, and September 15th to hear me at Sullivan, Illinois. And we both look forward to meeting as many listeners as we can.
Yep. All right, guys. We appreciate it. Have a good week.
God bless everybody. Take care.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo, Via Farm Real Estate Company, 360 Hunting Blinds, Victory Chevrolet, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, Gingerich Tree Farm, WildlifeFarming.com, Quiet Cat, and Vortex Optics. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.